All right, so let's talk about let's start off with the Nats here. Nats get an 8-4 win last night over the Orioles. Max didn't get through the fifth, but, Davey said that he was kind of going to be on a pitch count. He got to 89 pitches, but he didn't look like he was too labored. I mean, I guess he was a little tired than fifth, but he struck out 8, and they certainly need him going down the stretch. So how do you feel about Max here as we enter September?
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. You've got more than a month to go before you get to the playoffs. So, they're going to take it slow, be cautious. That's the way they should be. I'm sure he wants to press, but the smart thing is to take it slow. They're going to be in the playoffs, even if it's a wild card. So, I think the chances to beat Atlanta are not that great that it's worth pressing him and risking him. So they're going to need him, and they're going to need that bullpen to be okay. And those are two keys for that team.
Yeah, the bullpen's the big question. Now they've been better. They've been better since making the trades and acquiring those guys, but they still have had spots where you go, oh my gosh, same old bullpen.
Yeah, the bullpens have been bad for all the teams basically in the National League. San Francisco was good until they traded 3 guys, and they haven't been as good. St. Louis has somehow, without names, been okay. The rest of them all have questions, whether it be the Cubs, Brewers, the Mets. None of them are perfect, but for the first two-thirds of the season, at least, Washington's was the worst. I don't think I'd ever seen a team with a bullpen ERA of 6 and be in playoff position like they were. It's rare to have a team having bullpen ERA of 6 anyway, but certainly none of them have been contenders as Washington is. But they're pulling it together, and if they get Doolittle healthy and right, that'll be a plus as well. Good trades at the deadline that were necessary, and they're no worse than several others right now in the bullpen area.
How do you evaluate the Davey Martinez? There was a period of time there where we were coming in. I felt like it was almost an hourly watch, where at any moment this guy could have been fired. I don't think Mike ever really wavered, but at least the fans felt that way. How do you evaluate how he's done so far?
Well, I mean, you got to give him credit. They pulled it together, and I think he's good with the team, with the clubhouse, and that's the most important thing for the manager. I think a lot of the strategy is probably taken away from managers these days, and, I would say that I wouldn't consider him a strategic gem or any Tony La Russa or anything like that, but he's passable, and the fact that he's such a good guy who doesn't respect in the clubhouse is a plus. I was with you. I thought he was one of the most likely of the managers to go. Of the 13 or so I had on the hot seat at this point, I would say he has saved his job with what's gone on, and the fact that they are going to be a playoff team. I would say that he's okay. He's safe.
All right, so right now the Nats have a 3-game lead on the Cubs, who they swept last week. So they boosted that number because of that sweep, and that was great. And I'm just looking at the Cubs' schedule. All right, and this is another team that has struggled in the bullpen, as you know, John, right?
Yeah, so, they all have.
Yep, so they got Milwaukee 7 times, and they got the Cardinals 7 times, but they do get Pittsburgh 6. They get San Diego 4. They get Seattle a couple times, and they get the looks like they get the Reds. So their schedule isn't that daunting. Do you like the Cubs as the second wild card, or do you give the Phillies or the Mets a shot? The Mets are starting to die a little bit too.
Yeah, at this point you got to like the Cubs. That schedule is favorable. Pittsburgh's dead in the water, so that's 6 games. That's a big plus. I don't consider Milwaukee and St. Louis to be a negative. They're fighting with them, and I think on paper the Cubs are better, probably slightly. It gives them a chance to win that division. I'm a little shocked that St. Louis is in the lead. They've kind of done it under the radar. Good for them. I still think the Cubs can win that division, and I do expect them to be in the playoffs at this point. It's been shocking how terrible they've been on the road, but they got a little healthier against the Mets. And I think things are starting to shape up. I think we had 7 or 8 teams that were in the same boat. Washington separated itself as a very likely playoff team, and I think the Cubs are the favorite. I think we can name them as a favorite to get in among the other wild card contenders.
Who would they likely throw in a one game? I mean, we hear for the Nats it's going to be Scherzer. What about the Cubs?
Yeah, I don't know. Hendricks was not good yesterday. They wouldn't it wouldn't be Lester. So, I think we're probably looking at Hamels if he's healthy to be the guy. They've got 4 accomplished veterans. Obviously, Lester's the most accomplished, but he's been the least efficient, productive, whatever you want to call it, this year. So I don't think you can go with Lester. They don't have that obvious guy. Hamels has had his ups and downs as well, but I think it probably would be him if they had the choice at that moment. They still may be fighting and may not have that choice, but I would go with Hamels.
Joined by Jon Heyman, Radio.com Sports MLB Insider. Anthony Rendon is just having a monster season in a contract year. Who are going to be his major suitors when he makes it to free agency, and do you think the Nats have a chance at retaining him?
I think they do. Everything I hear coming out of Washington is he'd like to stay. It doesn't appear they're going to make enough progress to prevent his free agency, especially we're only a couple months away, and very difficult to do that when you're talking about a superstar player. I know he's a bit under the radar and maybe underappreciated in some circles, but once he's a free agent, he will not be underappreciated or under the radar. He's going to be the guy. There are a lot of teams that have third basemen who have filled at third and don't have that issue. So, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, if the Mets pony up, they don't really have a third baseman. Frazier has been okay, passable, but he is a free agent. There aren't a lot of teams. That's the one issue at third base, and there are so many great third basemen, and most of the better teams have a third baseman. It's difficult to predict at this point, but he is so good that teams will make room for him, and he's not going to have any problem. In free agency, he's going to be a $200 million plus player. I guess you're looking at that Arenado deal, probably in that range. I'm sure Washington didn't want to go that number of years in the negotiations, but in free agency, somebody will.